Ever wonder what makes each breath so vital? Let's dive into the world of respiratory volumes and capacities. First up, we have tidal volume, often called TV. This is the air you inhale or exhale in a normal breath, around 500 milliliters. A healthy man can move about 6,000 to 8,000 milliliters of air per minute. Imagine doing that with ease. Next, let's talk inspiratory reserve volume, or IRV. This is how much more air you can inhale when you really take a deep breath, averaging around 2,500 to 3,000 milliliters. What about expiratory reserve volume? This is the extra air you can push out after a normal exhale, typically 1,000 to 1,100 milliliters. Then we have residual volume, or RV. This is the air that sticks around in your lungs even after you exhale, about 1,100 to 1,200 milliliters. By adding up these volumes, we get to know more about pulmonary capacities. Let's break them down. Inspiratory capacity is the total amount of air you can breathe in after a normal exhale. This is TV plus IRV. Expiratory capacity is the total air you can breathe out after a normal inhale. That's TV plus ERV. Functional residual capacity is what remains in the lungs after a normal exhale. This combines ERV and RV. Vital capacity is the maximum you can inhale after forcing out all your air. This equals ERV, TV, and IRV. Finally, total lung capacity measures the absolute maximum air volume in your lungs at the end of a deep breath. Now, let's move on to gaseous exchange. This magic happens in the alveoli, the tiny air sacs in your lungs. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged here mainly through diffusion, based on pressure differences. This exchange depends on solubility, membrane thickness, and the partial pressures of O2 and CO2. Speaking of partial pressure, it's the pressure exerted by a single gas in a mixture. For us, it's O2 and CO2. Oxygen travels from the alveoli to the blood, while carbon dioxide moves from tissues to the alveoli. With CO2 being 20 to 25 times more soluble than O2, it diffuses faster across membranes. The diffusion membrane consists of 3 layers: alveoli epithelium, capillary endothelium, and basement substance. This membrane is thinner than a millimeter, making gas exchange super efficient. Let's shift gears to the transport of gases. Blood is the superhero here, carrying O2 and CO2 throughout the body. About 97% of O2 is carried by red blood cells, with the rest dissolved in plasma. Talk about teamwork. For CO2, about 20 to 25% is also carried by RBCs, but a whopping 70% gets transported as bicarbonate. Hemoglobin is the star of the show, binding O2 and creating oxyhemoglobin that delivers oxygen to tissues. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry up to 4 O2 molecules. That's efficient breathing at its best. Binding depends on partial pressure of O2 and several other factors, like PCO2 and temperature. In the alveoli, high P2 and low PCO2 create perfect conditions for oxyhemoglobin to form. In tissues, low P2 and high PCO2 push oxygen off hemoglobin, allowing it to nourish cells. Every 100 milliliters of oxygenated blood can deliver about 5 milliliters of O2 to tissues. That's essential for life. What about CO2? It's carried as carbaminohemoglobin and in dissolved form in plasma. Just like O2, binding CO2 to hemoglobin is influenced by P2. High PCO2 means more binding. When PCO2 is low in the alveoli, CO2 switches places and gets released into the lungs. CO2 formed in tissues diffuses into the blood, where it becomes bicarbonate for transport. Carbonic anhydrase plays a key role here, speeding up the reaction to keep everything flowing smoothly. In the lungs, the reaction reverses and releases CO2 to be exhaled. That's how we clear out waste. On to the regulation of respiration. Our body has a cool way of keeping breathing just right. The medulla in your brain acts as the main control center, adjusting our breathing rhythm as needed. The pneumataxic center, located in the pons, helps fine-tune our breathing, making it super efficient. Chemosensitive areas in the brain respond to CO2 and hydrogen ions, triggering adjustments when levels spike. Receptors in the aorta and carotid artery also signal changes in CO2 and H+ to adjust respiration. Surprisingly, oxygen levels don't play a major role in regulating how we breathe. Interesting, right? Now, let's touch on some common respiratory disorders. Asthma can make breathing a real challenge. Emphysema, often linked to smoking, damages alveoli and decreases respiratory surface. Protect your lungs.